Yo, what's happening? Coach Brandon, Alpha Physique Fitness, and welcome to part 2 of the Build Muscle, Not Body Fat series, where I'm teaching you how to maximize your muscle gain while minimizing the amount of fat that you gain with it so you can build that lean, defined, and muscular looking physique. So inside of this video, inside of part 2, I'm going to be talking about rate of gain and how to control your rate of gain to ensure that all the weight you gain while trying to build muscle is actually muscle and not just a little bit of muscle and then a bunch of body fat that's going to cover up that muscle, which beats the whole purpose of building muscle in the first place, right? Before we start, just so you know, I also cover how to gain muscle and not body fat and minimize your body fat gain in my free 40-minute hard gainer masterclass, and also my free 49-page physique mastery guide, which you can get both of just below this video in the description at the link. Okay, so with that said, let's dive into today's video. So to start, let's just start with doing a recap of what I went over in the last video, so in part number 1. And what I went over in part number 1 was the foundational element to making sure that the weight you gain when you're trying to build muscle is hard, lean, and it's visible. And it's not just a bunch of soft body fat that covers up whatever muscle you do gain. Okay, and that foundational element is an optimized P ratio. Okay, so when we look at my magical virtual whiteboard of lean gains, I'm going to recap this real quick on here. So in order to optimize your P ratio, what you need to do is make sure that you do not begin adding muscle unless you are between this 8 to 10% body fat range, okay? Because another thing I mentioned in part 1 is you cannot gain muscle without gaining body fat with it. So there's no way to totally prevent fat gain, but you can minimize it. And the first way that you start off doing that, so the first thing that needs to be true is you need to be lean, okay? So by starting at 8 to 10% body fat, you're giving yourself the best and longest possible window of time before you reach that red line, which is 15% body fat, which is where body fat accumulation is going to become high enough that it's like the point of diminishing return, right? You're going to be gaining so much body fat with the muscle that you gain that there's no point to be gaining weight any longer. Okay, you're throwing your hormones out of balance, etc. Okay, so once you do this, what you're going to start doing from there is, again, this is something I talked about in the last video. You're going to gain some muscle. There's no way to prevent a little bit of fat gain with it. From there, you allow yourself to reach a set point, which we're going to talk about in part 3. And then because you can lose body fat without losing muscle, if you play your cards right, which is another thing that I'll talk about in a different video, you can lose that body fat while maintaining that same level of muscle. And then you just repeat this process over and over again, okay? So you're gaining muscle, but you're maintaining that same level of body fat percentage as you add muscle, right? So you're widening the gap, basically. Okay? Now, when you do this, another key factor to staying lean as you do it is the rate at which you gain while you're focusing on building muscle to stay lean. Okay? Because if you gain weight too fast, that's going to throw off your P ratio, right? And it's going to cause you to begin gaining fat faster than you gain muscle and hitting that point of diminishing return faster, okay? So what I'm about to go over inside of this video is how to control this to make sure that when you gain weight, you're gaining the maximum amount of muscle as possible and the minimum amount of body fat while you do it, okay? So there's 3 things that we're going to be looking at here, okay? So number 1 is the length of time you spend gaining muscle. Number 2 is rate of gain. And number 3 is how to control your rate of gain. Okay, so we'll start with length. Okay, so in a muscle gain phase, you're going to gain muscle, you're going to gain some body fat with it. Okay, and basically there's a set period of time that you're going to hit that point of diminishing returns. For beginners, you do not want to spend more than 24 weeks gaining muscle, so focusing on eating in a surplus and gaining weight, and really no less than 16 weeks, which is a pretty long period of time. For intermediate to advanced guys, you want to limit your gain phases to between 6 and 16 weeks. Okay, so this is and this is assuming that your P ratio is optimized when you start, and this is also assuming that you control your rate of gain, but in these 16 to 24 weeks or 6 to 16 weeks, right? So you also want to let yourself settle. So these are all things that we're going to be talking about in this video and the next video. Okay, so if you go beyond these max limits, you're going to be spinning your tires. So every week you go beyond either 24 or 16 weeks, depending on whether you're a beginner or you're advanced lifter, you're going to be adding more fat and less muscle. Okay. Now, just as important as length is rate of gain. Okay. Now, this may be shocking to you. It also might be upsetting. And I know I was upset when I learned this. But inside of your either 16 to 24 week or your 6 to 16 week muscle gain phases, in order to make sure that your P ratio remains optimized and you're keeping that gap between muscle gained and fat gained as wide as possible, is you're going to want to keep your rate of gain between 0.25% to 0.5% of your body weight per week. Okay. So if you were 200 pounds, that is only 2 to 4 pounds per month, okay? Which I know that doesn't sound like fun, doesn't sound like as much fun as like rapidly gaining 5 to 10 pounds a month, because it's just not as gratifying and you're not seeing those numbers. But if you want to see the end result and you want to gain muscle that's lean, hard, defined, and most importantly, it's visible, and there's not a bunch of body fat on top of that covering it that you're going to have to spend another couple of months or even maybe even years for some people getting rid of, you're going to want to follow these rate of gain rules. Okay, this is something that I learned the hard way, and the reason I'm sharing it with you is because I don't want you to have to learn the hard way like I did. Okay, so how do you control this? Well, to start, you need to know what your set point is, which is going to be the topic of part 3 of this series. But the reason that's important is because in order to be in control of the rate that you gain weight, you must start in control. And starting in control means knowing exactly what your maintenance calories are. Okay, so which means knowing exactly how many calories you need to consume to maintain your body weight where it's at. Okay, so let's say your maintenance calories are 2,500 calories per day, and then like we talked about earlier, you're aiming to gain between 0.25 and 0.5% of your body weight per week. So what you decide to do is eat at a 300 calorie surplus by bumping your calories up from 2,500 to 2,800 per day. Okay, so you track your weekly average weight, which is what you should be doing in order to get good data. So you're tracking your daily body weight, and you're taking the average of those 7 days, and you're comparing that with last week. And let's say you go from 170 pounds to 172 pounds. Okay. So that's a gain of 1.2% of your body weight, which is outside of the 0.25 to 0.5% range. So what do you do here? Does this mean that you need to decrease your calories now? No, because that would be reactive. We want to take responsive approaches. So And what we do know is your rate of gain. So if you continue eating the same 2,800 calories per day, week after week, your rate of gain is going to decrease over time. Okay, so you might gain 1.2% of your body weight, and then it might fall to 0.5% of your body weight the next week, and then it might fall like within range to 0.3%, and then it might drop below the range. As long as, and basically as long as you lose between 0.25% to 5%, 0.5% of your body weight per week, on the average, over the course of the average of your 6 to 16 weeks or 16 to 24 weeks that you're gaining muscle, that's fine. That's all you were after, is the average over time, okay? And it's as simple as that. If you gain below the 0.25%, then you're going to want to increase your calories. So once you fall below range, that's when it's time to increase. So you might go from 2,800 to 3,100, right? Okay, so I hope that makes sense. If this seems overwhelming and confusing to you, that's only because this is new to you, right? If this seems simple and you've heard this before, then what I would ask you is, what brought you to this video then? Why haven't you implemented? Okay, and no matter which end of that spectrum you're on, so if this seems overwhelming or you've been at this for a while and you've known this, but you're not implementing on it, the solution is the same, right? You need to get this stuff down on paper, and you need to begin implementing, you need to begin tracking, and you need a step-by-step plan and method to make sure that you're hitting your targets, you're tracking your progress, and you know what to do to adjust on a daily and on a weekly basis, okay? So this is exactly what you get inside of Alpha Lean Mastery. So this is one of the tools that you get. You get a ton of templates like this. And basically, this just gives you a means of tracking all that stuff easily and in one place, right? So you put your daily average weight in here. This calculates your weekly average weight for you. And then this column here tracks your gain loss percentage. And then right here, you track your amount of calories, okay? And there's also tools to calculate your calories and your macros for you. But without showing you too much, that's one of the things that you get inside of Alpha Lean Mastery to make this simple, and so everything is all in one place, right? So anyway, that's it for this video. Again, if you've been watching videos like this for a while now and you're still not getting anywhere, click the link in the description below this video. Check out my free 49-page guide for hard gainers. Watch my free 40-minute masterclass for hard gainers. And if you want to work with me one-on-one to create a step-by-step plan to get you to your leanest, most defined, muscular, and aesthetic physique, you can also submit your application for Alpha Lean Mastery on that webpage as well. All right. So that being said, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment to tell me what you thought and what kind of content that you'd like to see moving forward. And otherwise, we will see you inside of the next video.